Hello, welcome to the queue. This is another video on the new game Invasion Normandy, and this one will be a multi-part series on turn one. And before we get to the first phase of turn one, you've got your setup. The German setup is not complete because I'm using a lot of units over on the other table from my Global War 36 game. But I've got all the pertinent frontline troops set up. That is set up off the setup chart. There are some optional, or not optional, but stuff that gets to be placed, units by the Germans on any space. There'll be 2 engineers, 6 mines, 2 fortifications that you can put, and I think you can't put those in victory cities or victory hexes. They have to go somewhere else. And then there are these rail guns that you can place. And there's those. The rest of these are determined by the setup chart. The only allied units that are self-determined are these here, right off the first hexes in these ocean spaces. Those are specified. Oh, we're missing the 4 infantry there. Those are specified as to what the Allies have to place. If you look at the next here, there's this box called the next wave box, and then here's the follow-up box. You can see those. Those are all empty to start the game in the setup. All these units basically are up here in this reinforcement box. And you have a limited number of tanks, mechanized infantry, artillery, medics, engineers, that kind of thing. Infantry is unlimited. So each box here has to have at least 1 infantry. And I'm going to suggest early on you put multiple. I have 3, plus, the supporting units, because the infantry are unlimited. So you want your casualties in these first rounds for the beaches, the heavy fighting on the beaches, to be your infantry. You don't want to put a bunch of tanks in here, come in and lose them, and then by the time you get to late game and you're out of tanks, you can't come and quickly conquer all these other victory hexes that you do need to win as the Allies. So the logistics on the Allied side can help you or hurt you, depending on how you decide to bring in your forces. So they'll go from the reinforcements to the follow-up to the next wave. And then you'll see when we get to that part of this series of videos how these will shift, and then you fill back in. But for now, this is the setup. This first section of video, or part 1, I should say, is going to be the airborne phase. When you place these mines, you have to keep in your thought that the mine, anytime an Allied goes into a space with a mine, they get to roll a dice at 2 for how many units. So you could be tempted to place them, in spots here where, the airborne might be landing, but if only 1 airborne lands there, then you only get 1 dice. Whereas if you've got a mine here and this stack of 5 infantry or 4 infantry comes in there, now you got 4 dice at 2. So I'm just going to place 1 for now in that hex, and the rest we'll just leave off because we won't get to those locations on this turn 1 summary. So on the back of the rule book is sequence of play summary, and it really is very helpful. It talks about the airborne drop phase, and then it tells you where in the rule book that is found. So that's a pretty neat little addition. So you'll go through the airborne drop phase, you'll do an offshore support phase, and the first landing phase, and that is separate or only for turn 1. So and you can kind of see it up here on the turn chart if you wanted to move your tracker each time you do. So airborne drops, first landing phase, and you'll see that in the next video. And then you go on to turn 1, and the rest of turn 1 is you start here with another offshore support. So on the first turn, you get your ships get to bombard twice. And then you go through these steps, and then when you go to turn 2, you start here and you work your way down again. Real simple, and like I said, in the rule book, it talks about, it gives you the location where in the rule book all the information is for those steps. So the Airborne. Airborne starts up, basically you've got these 2 Canadians, Airborne, you've got 4 British, and then the 2 Tetrarch tanks, which I just received in the from HBG, so I can get rid of these light tanks that I'm using. I probably should have done that before the video. You got 6 U.S. Airborne here for the 82nd and 6 here for the 101st, and that they all correspond with these spots on the hex or hexes on the map. And you know, so you got the Canadian here, and then the 2 British are split up between those 2. All right, so the first part is to determine where they land. So let's start with this group of 6 here. This is their projected landing zone. However, we know they didn't land there. So how many of those 6 will actually land there? We're going to roll 6 D6s, and if it's a 1, they land there. So we've got 1, 2. So we're going to take 2 off of our card there. So 2 land there. So that means 4 did not. So now let's see where they drop, and we're going to need 4 D12s. That's 5. All right, and we're going to use our drop zone chart for the Americans. So we roll those. Do we get any doubles? We did not. So we got a 4, 5, 7, 9. So I'm going to grab those 4 infantry or airborne. 4 is 1 south, so that lands in J10. 5 is due, I don't know if that's south actually. What was the other? 7. So 7 is 2 away. Oh, that ain't good. They landed right in the city center there. And then 9 is 2 to the south. So that last guy goes, not south, 1, 2. So he lands here in J12. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing for the 101st. We'll grab our 6 airborne, and we'll roll our D6s. So 1 lands in the appropriate landing zone. All right, so that means we need 5 dice of D6 or D12s. And we'll roll those, and we do not have any doubles. So let's see, we've got a 3 on our chart. Is 1 that direction. 4 is 1 that direction. What's the next one? 8. So 8 is 2 this direction. Oh, St. Mariglees. You know what? That battle almost happens every game. I don't know how that is. 10 and 11. So 10 is 2. So there's a battle there. And 11 is 2. Oh, missed the swamp. That's a good thing. All right, so that's the American spread. They are basically all over the place. Only these 2 landed in the same, which was their original zone. And then this one is the original zone. So 3 out of the 12 landed where they were supposed to. All right, so next, let's go on to down here to the Canadian side. And we'll do the 2 Canadians. I'm going to mess up some of my setup because we're not going to get to them. So Canada has 2 dice. So one of them is correct, lands in the right zone. The second one lands in 3. And 3 is just 1 down to the right. So 1 is there and 1 is in the swamp. All right, next is the British. So we're going to divide those up 2 and 2. So the tank I guess we got to roll those separate. So here's the 2 British infantry. They do not land in the right spot. The tank does not either. All right, so let's have the British infantry be the yellow and the tank will be the blue. So 2 11s and a 12. All right, so 11. 11's not good. That's right there in con. And then a 12 is up here in M29. All right, so we'll do the same thing for the other landing zone. First, we'll roll 2 for the infantry or the airborne. They do not. The armor does not either, so we'll roll that as the same. 10, 11, and a 1. So they are not in the same spot. So looking at that, 1. Oh, is in the city. That ain't good. 10 is to the south, and then the tank, no, the tank was 10, and 11 is here. So we do land with the Canadians there. All right, so now that you've used your chart here from the, trying to think what that was called, what the chart's called, doggone it. Anyway, so we've got our airborne landed. The next thing we have to do is determine combat. You don't have to have any combat, but anyone that lands in a zone with a German is a forced combat. So that means that the airborne, you know what, I'm going to slide all this stuff in the bottom over so I can bring out my sheets here. So we need German defense, obviously, and these are our battle boards. We need the Allied attack, and the reason being the airborne stack. So there is 1 airborne there. We could bring that airborne in here from K11, and that would be, means that they would actually be boosted. See, there's just 1 infantry or 1 airborne here attacks at a 2, 2 airborne attack at a 3. So, and then that German's going to defend at a 4. So basically, now the thing is, you risk an immediate counterattack by the Germans here, possible counterattack. But that is a victory city, so that's probably worth it. This guy landed in the appropriate zone. It's undefended radar. It's just gone. So it's eliminated. No one landed here with the mines, so that isn't. This here is an attack. So now you might want to bring in, say, all these infantry here or airborne here. Now it only boosts you up to 3. So at 3, they're attacking at 4. So you could just bring 3 in, actually. Well, this guy's, you're not going to make that 1 attack. So 4 would go in there and try and take J10. Is that J10? Yeah. Next up, these guys, they're on their own. There's no way to help them. They just have to fight, and they can retreat to there. Here in St. Mary-Église, we can bring in 1, so we can double up there. There's no sense going one-on-one with the airborne. So next up over here, we do have 2 airborne here in the first city hex of Con. Might as well bring in that tank. The other one we have to do here is in this city zone. There is no one next to him. He's on his own. That's probably not a wise attack right next to all these tigers. So that'll be the attacks. So let's see how that works out for the Allies. So based off of the battle board here, this first attack, there's 2 airborne at 3, and the German will be at 4. So it's 1 round of combat. Yellow dice will be the Americans. No hits. So what happens is the U.S. airborne has to retreat. That battle's over. this battle here in Point Labe in J10, they have 3 or more, so they will be attacking at 4. So I'll just roll that U.S. attack at 4, and they do get a hit. So that'll be the infantry. I don't think you can take the Goliath as a casualty on this first round by the Airborne. So the Germans fire back at a 4 and they miss. So those 2 units are gone, and the Allies have their first victory hex on the Airborne phase. Let me get a card or punch one of these out here. So we'll place that there. And moving on. Now, we would mark it here on our sheet here, this box. But since I'm doing this video in parts, I'll just mark these at the end, because I wanted actually more space to show the rule book and the stuff like that. So we're done with that rule book for this round, or for this first part 1 video. So we'll mark this when we're done with the attacks, because here is another victory hex. There's 2 Airborne, so they're going to be at 3. The German will be at 4. So we'll roll those together, and blue will be the German unit. German hits, Airborne hits, so 1 and 1. But, and I should have left that over here, punch out another marker. St. Mary-Glees falls, so the Allies are now up to 2. There is no hope in this one. There is an artillery there, which is a first strike, right? Looking on our chart here, artillery, towed artillery 4, first strike. All right, so, nope. All right, so the battle goes on. The Airborne attacks at a 2 by itself. No, and then there's 2 German infantry at 4. And that is it for that. So he did not fare well. That is all the U.S. attacks. Let's go over here. And we've got the same thing here in N29. The German artillery. First strikes at a 4, misses. All right, so now there is 2 Airborne at 3. And the Tetrarch tank is at a 4. So the blue bice will be the tank. There is 1 hit, so we'll take off 1 German. And now the 2 German infantry get to fire back. And they get 1, so they'll lose the Airborne. Although I think I would lose that tank, because the Airborne stack and are more powerful on the attack and defense. So we'll lose that tank. All right, so that is it. The attack here has no hope. There is 1 British Airborne at a 2. There's 2 German infantry at 4. They get 2 hits, so he is gone. So several losses and several victories. So these 2 guys will have to back out. They could go here or here. I guess they could go there, but I'm going to bring them back towards reinforcements, because you want to keep your Airborne alive. They have that benefit of being able to be stacked and get a higher attack and higher defense. All right, so we are done with the Airborne phase. We did take 2 cities, and I don't have my markers on here for me, so I'm going to mark it with a star. So they are up to 2, which also moves the Germans on their activation points up to 2. And we'll get to that in a later video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll do the beach landings, or the offshore bombardment and the beach landing phase.